I'm just getting used to giving speeches like this, but I have to say, as a kid from Winnipeg, sitting and seeing all these Winnipeggers out in front of me, it's a little intimidating, but it feels good to be home. I want you to know, as I was flying in last night and circling Winnipeg and looking at all the places I lived, it really touched my heart, and so I'm thrilled to be here. I want to recognize and thank my colleagues in the room. Minister Chartrand, thank you very much for that kind introduction. MP Terry Duguid, thank you so much for all the work that you do for the people of Winnipeg. I think MP Levesque is here somewhere, so thank you for your support. And I know MP Carr was here earlier giving me shout-outs. He didn't call me Grandpa, which was good, but actually he's been wonderful. And I also want to acknowledge my provincial colleagues in the room. They've been great partners as I've taken on this new challenge. Minister Sala and Minister Moses, who I've spent time with. I'm really looking forward to working further with you. You guys have been great partners in Team Canada. So as you know, I was born right here in Winnipeg as the son of a Royal Canadian Air Force airman. I grew up on bases crisscrossing the country. But there's one place that anchored my identity as our family moved from coast to coast, and that place is Manitoba. I lived here 7 times, 6 times in Winnipeg, 1 time in the Interlake on CFS Gibsonville in Manitoba, if people know where that is. I have a whole long list of things that I was going to talk about that bring back these fond memories of Winnipeg, but you know, the thing that really stands out for me is riding the steam train in Assiniboine Park. Okay, who here likes riding the steam train? Okay. The last time I was here, my father passed away, and I got to go on the steam train with him. So that's a special place for me. In short, I want you to know a big part of my heart will always be here. And as my mother used to say, you can take the boy out of Winnipeg, but you can't take Winnipeg out of the boy. In fact, I am a member of Parliament for the Metro Toronto riding of Markham Thornhill. But Rebecca and everyone in this room, I want you to consider me an honorary MP from Manitoba. I will advocate for Manitoba and Winnipeg in the House of Commons and around the cabinet table. So my first message to you today is Canada needs more Manitoba. We are Canada's gateway to the West. It's the hardworking and entrepreneurial people of this province that have built a powerhouse of agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, and natural resources development. We have one of the cleanest, most reliable power grids in the world. We have successfully welcomed wave upon wave of new Canadians to our country with open arms. We have earned the nickname Friendly Manitoba. And just 2 short years ago, a little less than 2 short years ago, this province elected the first Indigenous Premier who has led the way on reconciliation, not only here, but across the country. So I'll say it again. Canada needs more Manitoba. These are things that make me proud to be a Manitoban. It's our advantage, And we should be saying so, especially at moments like this, where we find ourselves today. So now let me be honest about this moment, because Manitobans like to address things head on. As the Prime Minister said last week, what is happening in the global economy is not a transition. It is a rapture. And I'll say that again, it is a rapture. That word should sink in. That is why, to most of us, the world feels more volatile than it has in generations, and more uncertain than most of us expected, especially prior to the US presidential election last year. That change unleashed a trade war upon us, one that we did not ask for, but one that we have to win. This trade war is reshaping global supply chains, prolonging post-pandemic economic aftershocks, and stoking destabilizing geopolitical conflicts, something I don't need to tell anyone, any of the Ukrainian Manitobans here in this city. We also face a climate crisis that his administration is now denying, a crisis threatening our communities, our forests in the north, and our way of life. At the same time, his tariffs are undermining the vibrancy of our family farms, our towns, our cities, and small businesses across the country and right here in Manitoba. I want to be clear, this rapture is not theoretical. It is real. It is real, and it is making life in Canada more expensive, and those economic impacts are being felt by Canadians on every trip to the grocery store, in every energy bill, and on every rent or mortgage payment day. And at times like this, Canadians want and deserve more than just hope and slogans. What you need from the federal government is stability, responsibility, and reliability in our public services. These are things we can control right here at home, no matter what other nations are doing. So our new government's mission is clear: to be that beacon of stability, delivering upon a mandate which Canadians elected us, to be united, to be focused, to be decisive, and to be results-oriented. We will empower Canadians by building Canadians' economic strength and creating opportunities that help Canada not only get through the crisis, but get ahead in the long term. I'm honored to have been asked to be your Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. I understand that Canadians are asking from me and our government. They are asking us to build and to retool Canada to make it stronger, more resilient, more affordable, and safer for all Canadians. That's why we need to fundamentally change the way we do things. We're not just looking for Band-Aid solutions or short, divisive slogans. And that's why our mission is to make Canada an energy superpower. It's not just an economic policy, but it's a nation-building imperative. So in my mind, the purpose of becoming an energy superpower and extracting resources responsibly in partnership with Indigenous peoples and getting products to domestic and global markets is clear. It's so we can give Canadians a more secure, sovereign country and generate the income our government needs to affordably provide the services Canadians expect. So let me talk first about securing a sovereign Canada. Being an energy superpower means keeping Canadians safer by prioritizing energy security. For too long, we've relied on other countries for our energy and minerals that power our factories, keep our lights on, and serve as the building blocks of technology. Based on how countries around the world are using energy and critical minerals as tools of coercion, it's clear that this is a significant vulnerability, and if we don't build now, the trade infrastructure we need in this country, shame on us. We have massive natural endowment of resources right here at home. We must leverage them for our own security, so we never again have to worry about what happens if a pipeline is cut off, if a supply chain is manipulated by a foreign power, or if ships carrying goods and resources are diverted away from Canadian ports by foreign powers. This is what it means for us to control what we can and give ourselves more than anyone can take away. Strategically using our natural resources so Canada is a country that shapes its own destiny, confident and capable with what's within its own borders. So let me talk now about affordability. Selling our resources will generate the federal and provincial revenues for our governments at a time when government budgets are stretched too thin. These revenues can be used to benefit every Canadian across the country. We can do this by having the money in our government treasuries to provide the programs that Canadians rely on. High-quality health care, education, public safety, disability support, pensions, and employment insurance. We have to pay for those. We can also do this by using our natural resources to strengthen our overall economy, because a rising tide that lifts all boats, it will create high-paying and good Canadian jobs. As a Canadian, it's your right to have control over your paycheck. That means you should not feel like costs are so high that you have no choice but to spend your hard-earned dollars on basic necessities with nothing left over. We intend to use our energy and natural resources and other export commodities to re-energize our economy in a way that ensures every Canadian feels the positive impact in their pocketbooks. Earlier today, we delivered a tangible example of giving Canadians that pocketbook agency by announcing the Canada Greener Home Affordability Program. This will provide no-cost home retrofits like insulation, air sealing, heat pumps, solar panels, etc. And Manitoba is the first province in Canada to have the opportunity to be part of this program. That's something I'm proud of. In many ways, I trace the reason why I'm so singularly focused on making Canada an energy superpower right back to my time here in Manitoba, where I first saw the difference that Canadian energy can make in real people's lives. I went to a vocational high school here in Winnipeg. I went to Sturgeon Creek High School, and most of my classmates chose not to go on to university, but to enter the trades. One of my closest friends spent 25 years on the oil rigs in Alberta, as many kids on the prairies do. That job bought him a home in Winnipeg and supported his family. That's how it should be. And that's the Canada we must preserve, where hard work pays off, and if you get a good job that opens doors and builds assets and provides for a comfortable life, regardless of the career path you choose. We can do that by properly exploiting our natural resources. I know most of the people in this audience work in office towers and in business and commerce, and I know you too know that energy leads to good-paying careers. By developing our resources, we transform our natural capital into human capital, investing in a productive workforce, economic stability, and Canada's comparative advantage. That's why our government's agenda is just not about boardrooms in Toronto or Ottawa. It's about job sites in communities from Brandon to Beausejour, from Emerson to, yes, Churchill, and all across the prairies and beyond, where farmers, miners, and energy workers power our economy with exports every day. The most significant way we're doing this is through the Building Canada Act and the Major Projects Office. and our projects of national interest. As the Prime Minister said, we used to build things in this country, we used to build big things in this country, and we built them quickly. Today, the construction of major infrastructure too often is stalled by inefficient approval processes that have curbed investment by over 40% in the last 2 decades. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, that ends now. That ends now. As many of you are aware, yesterday we announced our first set of projects of national interest. These projects have undertaken extensive consultation with Indigenous peoples. We've been working with provincial and territorial governments and local authorities, and many of these projects have most of their regulatory requirements. The major projects will help get these proponents across the line and get shovels in the ground. We will make sure they have the necessary financing. Projects ultimately designated in the national interest will turbocharge and connect our regional economies to one another and our economy to the world, diversifying our markets to create hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs, and importantly, we will do this using our comprehensive Buy Canadian policy, prioritizing projects that are built with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian aluminum, and by Canadian engineers and tradespeople, so we are our own best customer. So I'd like to take a moment to talk about these projects, and I know we're going to have a conversation, so I'm going to do a game time audible here, and I'm guessing you have more interest in one project than all the others. Just call it a hunch. So for those of you who don't know, the first 5 projects that are being designated are being moved to the Major Projects Office are LNG Canada Phase 2, the Darlington SMR, Small Modular Reactor, the Port of Montreal, the Foran copper mine, and I'll spend a minute because that copper mine is just on the border of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. It's situated in one of Canada's richest mineral belts, and that project is moving forward in close collaboration with the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, and it will be a major copper and zinc mine that will help position Canada as a global leader in the supply of copper for clean energy and advanced manufacturing and modern infrastructure. It will create 400 jobs, boost the local economies, and is expected to be the first net zero copper project in Canada, showing that we can mine responsibly better here than anywhere in the world. Also on that list is the Red Chris mine, which is a major copper project in the northeast of BC, working very closely with the Tahltan Nation. And one of the things that are really interesting about that is that's the first step in unlocking a corridor of many, many more critical mineral opportunities, green energy opportunities, and there's also a conservation corridor that will preserve territory in perpetuity the size of the country of Greece. That's big thinking. So additionally, we've tasked the office to begin close consideration of the proposed, sorry, I will skip forward because you don't want to hear about that. Let me talk about the second group of projects, which are what the Prime Minister calls transformative projects. So there's these 5 additional projects our government believes that have strategies that could be truly transformative for the country, that are in earlier stages of development, require further resources to be put towards them. And so the Prime Minister has singled these projects out where a SWAT team will be developed to help those projects move forward for hopefully designation. These projects are very important to the country. The first area is around critical minerals. We've talked about that. Manitoba has a number of critical mineral projects that I would expect to be moving through this process, and that's something I've heard loud and clear as I've toured the world, that the world wants Canadian minerals. You know, right now, other countries are manipulating the price of critical minerals, trying to stop our mines from getting built. We need to address that. That's my job. I'm working with our G7 allies. I'm working with our NATO allies to put tools in place so we can make sure our mines come to market. The second strategy I'll mention is the Wind West Atlantic Energy Strategy, which is one of the biggest wind energy developments in the world. We talked about Pathways Plus, which is all reporters seem to want to talk about. We can talk about that too. We talked about the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor, which will connect the north to the rest of Canada and provide sovereignty and security in the north for our country. We talked about high-speed rail. We talked about the sovereign cloud. And then there's this other project. It's the one that I think Manitobans are interested in, so I saved the best for last. And that's the expansion of the Port of Churchill. A gateway not just to the Arctic, but to our economic sovereignty. A project that's just not a port, but part of Premier Canu's larger vision to unlock an Indigenous-owned energy corridor in Manitoba. Imagine a winter-resilient, expanded Churchill Port where prairie grain, potash, critical minerals, and maybe even LNG flows to the world. Where Indigenous communities are not just project partners, but developers as part of Manitoba's new Crown Indigenous Corporation. Where the port links with other infrastructure in a trade corridor that secures supply chains, asserts Arctic sovereignty, and anchors Manitoba's role at the center of a corridor to North American commerce. This is truly a transformational idea. With proposals for the port and rail line upgrades, an energy corridor, and marine ice-breaking capabilities, it would offer an alternative to West and East Coast routes, reduce Canada's reliance on a single energy corridor, and generate more than $1 billion annually in economic activity right here in Manitoba. It will be done with Indigenous peoples, not just as partners, but as leaders and as owners. A new way, a better way of building Manitoba, a way that we can and will lead the world. This is a nation-building project, and as a Manitoban, I'm proud, and I'm determined to see this through. So friends, I think it's abundantly clear that Canada stands at an inflection point. We need to act fast to protect what is important, our industries, our workers, and yes, our values. So we need to retool, and we need to change what we need to change. And with yesterday's announcement about projects of national interest, today's opening of the Greener Home Affordability Program, and actions we are taking to support the sectors affected by trade, by building national defense, and finding new like-minded allies to trade with, we are doing just that. We have the resources, we have the people and the momentum to turn uncertainty into opportunity. But turning those advantages into investments, into jobs, into stability requires unity, focus, and courage. Those are the values that I learned growing up here in Manitoba. So I say with confidence, with the help of this province and all the people in the room, we can make Canada a place where Canadians feel prosperous and secure, and we can be the energy superpower we're destined to be. Thank you very much. Merci.
Now please welcome to the stage Chamber President and CEO, Lorne Remillard.
All right. Thank you, Minister Hodgson. Greatly appreciated the remarks. I was going through my questions, and you touched on all of them. So we're going to unpack them even just a little bit more. But first, let me also say welcome back to Winnipeg. Welcome back to Manitoba. Congratulations on your election a few months ago. It's hard to remember. It was only a few months ago that we had the election. You were sworn into cabinet, and instantaneously, a very ambitious, a very visionary approach by the federal government, you and your role in the department, and let's get to the work of building our country. And in a short period of time, we're seeing a lot of movement. And so on behalf of all Manitobans, say thank you. You know, one of the things business has always said is we want to see government move at the speed of business. And we're seeing steps definitely moving in that right direction. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everything that you're doing to support Canada and Manitoba as well. Of course, you noted as U.S. trade negotiations continue, two things are abundantly clear. One, as the Prime Minister noted, our historic relationship with the United States is I know it's not transitioning, transforming, it's really entering a new existential state, if you will. And secondly, Canadians have to be the masters of our own fate. And everything that you talked about is really us taking control of that which we can, and we have a moral responsibility to do. And of course, in June, your government took decisive action through the passage of Bill C-5. And really, those are the areas we really want to talk about with you today, is this evolving context, in particular around enhanced natural resources, critical minerals, infrastructure, such as the Port of Churchill. But before we get into the questions, I think the one message we hope you really take away from today is that Manitoba, from government, from business, from community, we're ready to be part of the solution. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and get to the work of building a stronger, more resilient Canada. Manitoba wants to play its role and then some. So, but before we start looking ahead, I do want to talk a little bit about your past. So we're gonna go back. You've already noted you grew up here. You've lived in seven different locations. I think you've covered off all the quadrants of the city. You're the son of a military family and a graduate of the University of Manitoba. These roots, I believe, have been instrumental in your personal and professional journey in Canada and abroad. And a great example of Manitobans making an impact here and globally. So can you just please talk a little bit more about your Manitoba roots and how that has positioned you for success, not just in the past, but really in this moment, in this inflection moment facing our country?
You know, what I find is Manitobans have a humble determination. I know when you travel the world and you say you're from Winnipeg, you know, it raises eyebrows and they all have their little thoughts. And you say, "Have you ever been there?" And they sheepishly say no. I said, "Well, you should really try it sometime." It's a great place to grow up. It's a place where you walk outside and you bump into your neighbor. It's a place where you don't have fences 9 feet high around the home because you're afraid of your neighbor. It's a place where immigrants come. I mean, one of the things that I remember growing up is Folkorama. Like that's one of the best things about Winnipeg. You try and explain that to someone who's not from Winnipeg about how the whole city comes together and celebrates every nationality in the world, and every nationality gives their gift to the other people of Winnipeg, and everyone else in Winnipeg goes and participates in that. That doesn't exist anywhere else. I mean, that's something that's special. It's also a city where things are accessible here. I remember as a kid going to Rainbow Stage and sitting outside in an evening and watching a play, and it costs you your Coke and your ice cream to watch. It was. I mean, this is a place that believes in community. For those of you who haven't lived in other places, the thing that really, I think a lot of people think the fact that Winnipeg is so far away from other centers is a negative. In some ways, it's a huge positive, because it's not like you're going to go to Calgary for the theater tonight. It's not like you're going to go to Minneapolis for the ballet. It's not like you're going to go to Regina, to the zoo. Like, we got to have it all here. And so the community comes together and creates that. And I just think it makes for a really rich life. I think it makes for a life where everybody gets their shot. And I can't think of a better place to raise kids. I'm incredibly lucky that I got to grow up here.
You know, when I get asked, to describe Manitoba, for me, it's always the flood of '97. I remembered, getting on a bus and my friends just saying, okay, let's go, we're going to go sandbag. Didn't know where we were going. You just knew a Manitoban was in need and that you just needed to get out, fill a sandbag, because that's what Manitoba does. We come together, and I think that's a lot of what you were saying is really indicative. And I would also contend it's a place where everyone can be something. And I look at your career, what you've accomplished, your educational background, your roots established here in Manitoba really are the foundational pieces that allowed, I would say, amongst many factors, but have really contributed to your success, both in the private sector and now, of course, in the role you're in.
Yeah, when I used to work in New York, if they ever said there's a kid from Winnipeg here for an interview, if they can find their way to New York, they're hired.
Oh. So you heard that. If you can find a way. Staying with Manitoba for a moment, of course, you may have heard we're home to 30 of 34 critical minerals on Canada's critical minerals list, and contains all 6 that have been prioritized for their exceptional capacity to drive economic growth and strengthen supply chains. I stole that, Minister Moses, right from the provincial. But those 6, just in case you don't know what they are, and you should memorize them: cobalt, copper, graphite, lithium, nickel, rare earth minerals, and we'll throw in high purity silica, which we have in abundance too. The Manitoba government, of course, has recently announced an international campaign for the promotion of investing in Manitoba mining projects. What is the federal government's critical minerals plan for international market diversification, and what are the opportunities for Manitoba to align and maximize our provincial efforts?
Yeah. So the Prime Minister at the G7 conference in Kananaskis back in June proposed to our G7 allies something called a critical minerals buying group, and got one leader left partway through the conference. Maybe
it happens.
Maybe he didn't feel like he was getting along with everybody. I don't know. But everybody else kind of thought it was a good idea. And they've all named critical mineral envoys. And the idea is to look at the minerals, particularly the minerals where, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, but China has put export moratoriums on a number of these critical minerals because they, in essence, have started to control the market. And they're using it as a tool of coercion. And they're also systematically, whenever you try and develop a mine that would take away that monopolistic power. They flood the market, drive down the price, and make it very hard. So the idea is like-minded allies will work together to use their export development agencies, their export-import banks, some of the different programs that we have, and create contracts that deliver certainty of demand and certainty of a range of prices that allow mines to get financed and built. And that's something I'm working on right now with all of the other leaders. There's a G7 energy and critical minerals ministers conference coming up in Toronto at the end of October. We'll be working with all of those to put these contracts in place. We also lead delegations. So I guess it was about 10 days ago, I was in Germany with about 20 different Canadian mining companies. Vale was one of them, where we were over there working with many of the industrial users of these critical minerals to try and get them to commit to these types of contracts. We announced 3 different contracts when we're over in Germany. We're going to do more of that. You know, I'll bring it back to we all saw that moment in the White House where President Trump was dealing with President Zelensky, and he said, you know, you don't have any cards. You don't have any cards. And I don't know about you, but that was burned into my brain. Somebody's trying to call me.
If you need to take it.
No, it's okay. It's not the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've also seen him, you know, say, "Hey, Canada has no cards." You know, he'll do this line, and we've all kind of figured it out at this point, where it's we don't need Canada's steel. We don't need Canada's aluminum. We don't need Canada's forest products. We don't need Canada's potash. We don't need Canada's electricity. We don't need Canada's uranium. Well, we know what that means, right? He needs our steel. He needs our aluminum. He needs our electricity. He's a bully, and he's playing a game. We figured it out. We have lots of cards. We have lots of cards, and we have to play those cards effectively. And the best cards we have are critical minerals. If you look at the G7, every other country is a net importer of critical minerals. They don't have them. We do. Those are really good cards. We need to develop those cards.
See, now I just want to go with the card analogy, like we got the royal flush, and as long as we don't have any jokers. Nope, so again...
Were you talking about politicians when you said jokers?
You brought up the White House. Yeah, I got a translate. So you've already referenced, of course, you know, I started off by saying, you know, you were elected, and one of the things is definitely, you know, moving at the speed of business. Both the Prime Minister, yourself, and many of your colleagues have extensive experience in the private sector, and you know the frustrations that business has had historically with governments and not being able to move at the speed of business. But, you know, just a reminder, it was only a few months ago you were elected, but on August 29th, the Prime Minister, of course, launched the Major Projects Office, moving quickly on that promise to do so. And of course, for those that may not know, again, it's a single point of contact designed to fast-track the review of projects deemed to be essential to Canada's growth. We are so very pleased, of course, that Manitoba is factoring into the office's discussion. With operations ramping up, a new critical mineral storage facility now complete, ongoing research into year-round shipping, and the province's wealth of critical minerals, we believe it represents not just a unique opportunity for Manitoba. You know, we talk about it as Manitobans because we believe in it. We see the opportunity and are really excited about it, but Also excited because it allows us as Manitobans to show Canadians. This is what we bring to the table, amongst many things, but this is how we help build Canada. Of course, we've already heard a lot about the Arctic Gateway Group, but of course we know 29 First Nations, 12 northern Manitoba communities, a truly unique form of economic reconciliation. Prime Minister has spoken favorably, of course, of the Port of Churchill. A broad-based question here. Can you elaborate on the federal government's views of the Port of Churchill and the role you see it playing, not just in trade diversification and growth, but we've touched on it, in terms of economic reconciliation, Arctic sovereignty, and some of the other critical national interests that your government is facing?
There's a lot in that question.
I know, it's open-ended.
I think the Prime Minister and the government believes it's very important to create new options, new infrastructure, new egress to tidewater is sort of the trade term. So that, you know, his catchy line is, we can trade with all of our allies, all the allies who share our values, not just the allies who share our borders. And to do that, we need new ports. For those of you who don't know, the Port of Vancouver, which is the biggest port in the country, is almost completely maxed out. There's no real capacity for expansion. The Port of Montreal is close to being at capacity. We saw the announcement of that on the list. Those are the two major ports in the country. Creating a third port, a port that would actually be the closest to Northern Europe, is a big idea, and it fits in well with our vision about we need to provide better infrastructure in the north for the people of the north. We need to assert our sovereignty in the north. I think we used to be able to assume that because it was so far away, we were safe. Today, the Russians and the Chinese are in our waters all the time. And if we don't move our security forward, it will not be in our interests. So there's a security aspect to it as well. But I would also say, and I said this, I met with Premier Canoe this morning to talk about this, and I told him the Prime Minister is really taken by Premier Canoe's vision about an Indigenous Crown Corporation and his ideas around how to use that to share economic development with all Indigenous peoples in Manitoba. And that's a really interesting idea, because when I look at moving at the speed of business, I find one of the things that takes time is getting agreement on which nations are affected by projects and how the benefits of those projects will be shared. If the Premier is successful in developing this idea, which I think is a really interesting idea, it actually potentially makes that process quicker and clearer. And that means we build faster. That means the benefits of those projects start flowing to First Nations and to other participants. And if you're a private sector proponent putting your money at risk, you have greater certainty that there's clarity on how you move forward. So I think, you know, this Made in Manitoba idea is a really interesting one. The government of Manitoba is leading on it. The federal government is saying, "Wow, this is a great idea. We want to help. We want to try and help you make that a reality," because I think a lot of other places could learn from the process that you're going through. So there's many reasons why we were excited, and we could have put a lot of different projects on that list. There's a very short number. There's a reason Churchill's on the list.
So maybe just staying with that, I'm going to jump ahead a question. Because you referenced the province's ideas, and we know, of course, when it comes to Bill C-5, we just welcomed over 600 leaders with the Assembly of First Nations to Winnipeg a little over a week ago. Bill C-5 was a topic of discussion and debate. There's been expressed concerns by Indigenous First Nation leadership regarding Bill C-5. How do you respond to those concerns? In particular, how can Canada, and you referenced maybe the Manitoba option, but how does Canada move forward in a good way with First Nations and Indigenous leaders?
So I get every reporter, they're looking for their, and my response, I got this yesterday from CBC in British Columbia. Said, "Hey, Chief so-and-so doesn't like this." And, "Oh, that's nice. I was with Chief Campbell of the Squamish Nation, who are building a $15 billion LNG facility that's going to generate hundreds of millions of dollars for their community. I was with him on the weekend. He's pretty excited about this bill." And I was with Chief Nice of the Haisla, who are building about $50 billion worth of LNG facilities that are going to generate billions of dollars for the community. And she's pretty excited about this. And I was with Chief Eva Clayton, who's talking about building a $40 billion facility up in Prince Rupert for her people. And she's really excited about this. So my comment is, there are 640 nations. There are some chiefs who aren't interested. Mm-hmm. That's cool. There are a lot of chiefs who are. We're not jamming any projects anywhere they don't want to go. I'll be honest, Canada doesn't have enough money to do everything. So if a nation doesn't want, okay, we'll go. There's lots of nations. There are lots of nations that are quite interested in working in partnership, and will be respectful. But you know, we're not interested in jamming anything into anyone that they don't want. But what I would say is, it takes consultation and agreement and partnership. And if someone can't find a way to partnership, well, then the Major Projects Office is going to go and work where there's that interest. And so it's up to everybody to figure out how to make that work. If people don't want it to work, it won't.
Okay. No, well said. In terms of building, like a lot of the focus, of course, a lot of the projects you've talked about, we're talking about new projects, new initiatives, but one of the challenges in Canada, of course, and I would say especially in municipal areas, we see it in a very pronounced way, is we have a lot of aging but critical trade-enabling infrastructure across the country. And cities, provinces, communities across the country are really struggling to address not just the new projects, but in particular that aging, existing infrastructure. So what are your thoughts on Canada, you know, as we look forward with the Major Projects Office and we look to build out nation-building, trade-enabling infrastructure? What is the government's thoughts on the need for a trade-enabling infrastructure strategy, and that strategy really also embracing not just the new, but how do we fund existing infrastructure and bring it back up to speed?
So infrastructure is a word that means many things to many people. What we're focused on is ports, railways, energy infrastructure, major roads more in the north because in the south they're more provincial responsibilities. And what I would say is, there's a lot that C5 can do around those types of projects. C5 is not going to solve the social infrastructure problem. There's other programs to do that. I'd highlight the work that Minister Robertson is doing on Build Canada Homes. I think the Prime Minister said there'll be an announcement on that in the next couple of weeks. The Prime Minister's commitment is to get us from building 200,000 new homes a year to 500,000 new homes a year. Build Canada Homes is going to be a big part of that. So a lot of people think about infrastructure in that way. A lot of the local city infrastructure is more of municipal and provincial responsibility. But again, if we get the big projects going, that generates the economic activity, that generates the revenues, that generates the jobs, that pays the local municipal and provincial taxes, so that the province has the money to build those. So it's starting at the macro and then working down, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I mean, that's something that the Chamber movement has always said, right? Growth needs to be our objective. It's what pays. Profit's not a bad word. It actually enables all the investments that we want to make.
Our system does not work if there is no profit.
Exactly. Have one last question. I want to tap into your experience. Prior to coming into government, obviously you worked in the private sector, led a Goldman Sachs Canada. So the question starts with, many have mused, of course, that Canada finds itself at an existential crossroads, not just for our economy, but even more. Well, historically, Canadian elections are fought over partisan ideas, solutions. Perhaps today, more than any other time, we really need to elevate our ideas, our plans, our approaches beyond partisan, but to more of the national interest. And we see some of that, like you don't see a lot of federal debate over whether we should privatize healthcare or not. Like, the national interest is healthcare, right? We don't spend a lot of time grandstanding around that. And so, when I look at this moment in Canadian history and the direction the Prime Minister and his government and you around the cabinet table are looking, now's the time for us to transcend political theater and go to those ideas that are accepted by Canadians as being truly in the national interest and are beyond further, political machinations, if you will. Now, as a former private sector leader, for business, this would mean less partisan swings when we see changes in government. This would produce more predictability and certainty for private sector investment. So I guess my question, and I'm getting to it eventually, is how do we get to that moment where we're truly elevating these things to the national interest? How do you as a government work to coalesce 40 million plus people around a national interest? Because this is really what we're talking about. The Build Canada that you're talking about is building a national interest that is this country.
Yeah. So there's a lot in that. Let me make 2 points. Who here would have thought a year ago we would be seeing a Liberal Prime Minister stand up and talk about moving forward with projects of national interest and a plan how to grow our economy in response to what is happening in the world. And a Conservative Premier of Alberta stands up and says, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm in.
Quick show of hands.
And then an NDP premier from Manitoba says, yeah, this is pretty good, I'm in. We're in that moment. That moment that you're talking about, we're in it. And it is a special moment, and it's ours to take advantage of, or it's ours to lose. And so I would ask all of you, when you see us come back to Parliament next week, there are people who are interested in working together, and there are people who are interested in telling you that everything's broken and nothing works and whatever the government does is bad. You know, I'm new to politics. I was happily chair of Hydro One until I mistakenly answered a phone like that one. But I was new, and so I had to go out and knock on doors in my riding. My riding is in a suburban part of Toronto, and in many ways, it's a microcosm of suburban ridings all across the country. And whether it would be Transcona here, or Fort Garry here, or St. James here, I don't know. But here's, in my riding of Markham Thornhill, 85% of the people in my riding are either new Canadians or children of new Canadians. 85%. And when I knocked on the doors, I was blown away. I was blown away because what I heard over and over again was my constituents were living their version of the Canadian dream. They came here with nothing. They've worked hard, and they've managed to scrape enough money together to buy a house. And they may have one generation or two generations or three generations, but they bought a house. And their kids are going to a school, and they're getting a good education. And their kids are, if they want to, they're going on to community college or to university and paying a tuition that doesn't bankrupt the family. And if somebody happens to get sick, the family doesn't go bankrupt because we've got universal health care. And what I heard over and over again is, this country has given me everything. We have to protect this. You need to win. We need to beat this craziness. So maybe this is part of it. I don't think the country's broken. I think this is the greatest country in the world. I think the dream is alive in this country. We can do better, but the glass is not broken. The glass is 3/4 full or 7/8 full. We can decide whether we want to fill it the rest of the way up, or we want to smash it on the ground and, tear it all down, rip it all up. It's all broken, and start over. Like I just don't buy that. That's not how we create unity.
Well said. Well said. I'll add, if I may, you may be new to politics, but you're not new to leadership, and that definitely shows in your remarks. So thank you for answering that call. Thank you for putting your name forward, putting your name on that ballot, and for the work that you're doing. Again, thank you to Minister Hodgson. A round of applause for the minister.
And I just want to say that the Prime Minister said the next set of projects will be announced by Grey Cup Day. So when the Bombers win the Grey Cup, we'll all be here celebrating, right?
Perfect. Thank you, Minister.